that right now. Thank you.
I got that. I had that request quite a bit is, will we be recording this? So, little backstory, short version for myself is, as you see my name, Stephanie Siete. I'm the public information officer for a behavioral healthcare system here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been a part of the agency, I can't believe this, but 21 years doing outreach and education. And yeah, I even called someone back today. I hope he's on here, Julian, and had asked what the topic was really specifically about. And I said, really, the most current trends that are affecting everyone, but primarily our younger audience. And I say younger, like teens under the age of 30. Vaping is a very young behavior, but I think a lot of people just don't really know the facts and dangers and risks about it. So I'm going to explain that, but I'll give you the big teaser right here. You don't just vape nicotine. You can vape marijuana. You could even vape fentanyl. And I know that this is, it's live, but I can't really see all you guys the way I have the screen set up. But this morning I did a big seminar for principals and vice principals. And I said, be honest. How many of you do not know what BHO is? And a majority of the hands went up. So BHO, just another fancy current way of saying marijuana, butane honey oil or hash oil. And that's what you would vape. You see the picture there. So it's not that marijuana is out. It's just the format. So what you're really going to get out of me, I won't keep you guys for the full hour and a half, maybe about an hour 15. Ask questions throughout. You can type them in the chat. Debbie's going to keep checking them. I'll try to. But really, I just want to talk to you about, again, what's going on in the world of vapes, fentanyl, and BHO. I know adults watch the news, so we hear about how dangerous fentanyl is. I have the TV on right now, and they were just talking about here in Arizona, some candy today in Casa Grande that was taken, and it wasn't candy, it was fentanyl pills. So again, I'll explain all of this. Why don't we just get started? So working in this field for over 20 years, I do have to kind of explain also that my background is also with law enforcement. My dad was an officer. I work for officers. I train law enforcement. I get a lot of intel from narcotics officers. So again, I should forewarn everyone, this is fast and direct. I don't sugarcoat. I really don't know how to do that. I need people to understand that in a long career, just with a niche talking about drugs, we've seen a progression, right? Like the mind altering drugs are more mind altering than they've ever been. To me, legal versus illegal doesn't really matter because they're all dangerous. And then, when you talk about synthetic or natural, you can't just say, oh, it's a plant, it grows in the ground. Everything is synthetically altered or chemically altered, and I'll show you that. So you kind of think of like meth is the original, but I just told you BHO is butane honey oil. So the marijuana is cooked with butane. I even have some short videos that I can show you. So to me, all of these drugs are concerning. If anything, this would kind of be your overview or agenda, if you will. We're living in an evolution of drugs. Things have progressively gotten worse. That's not to be an exaggerator. I'm about to show you that in a few moments. Meth has a whole new recipe. Nowadays, meth was bad enough, but now it's not necessarily causing death immediately. It's causing mental deterioration. So it's decaying. People are, if you can't communicate and you're nonverbal, then it's harder to recover from this. Heroin, still a big drug that's out there. It's part of the opioid crisis, but 70% of the heroin that's out there is fentanyl. So again, vaping, I'll explain a little more about why it's destroying lungs. I'll show you pictures of marijuana. It looks like crystal meth. I'll explain why fentanyl is so potent. But I think a big chunk of this overview here is just understanding manipulation and marketing. So again, I can't see who's all on here, but if we got kids on here, they probably already know that flavored vapes are geared towards them. I'll say this multiple times in this presentation because it still shocks me. But there's over 15,000 flavors, 15,000 flavored vapes that are like dessert and candy oriented. And no one likes to put the word lure in front of children, but these products lure children. I will also get into, I don't want kids to think this is just a presentation about kids. With adults, look at us. We were lured, manipulated with companies like Purdue Pharma, who released a drug called OxyContin that was very highly addictive, and we were misled about that. If you don't know that story, I'll explain it. I'll give you a show to watch, some books to read, And I think connecting all the dots, just understand the synthetic world that we live in is everything's connected via social media. Social media is the conduit, is the connector to how you buy the drugs, how people, I say people, how a lot of parents are learning the hard way. Sometimes parents like this find out that their kids are deceased by seeing stuff online. I can't emphasize enough that where we live today, that there's no plain drugs. There's nothing that's vanilla. When I say social media is a problem, you've got parents reporting that Snapchat was where they obtained a lot of this, and they know that one pill can kill. But that's the campaign that you hear, right? It rhymes. One pill can kill. One use can kill. There will be some of this stuff that you're about to see that is liquid in vape form. So fentanyl can register in any form that's out there. How's it getting delivered so easily? One dad said it was as easy as ordering a pizza. It was delivered to our front door. So it's not like cash handshake deals on the corner now. Some of this is just a connection online. Wait until I tell you a really sad story from Mesa, Arizona, where a kid in the middle of the night playing on his phone had it delivered to his door when the parents were asleep. And I'll tell you exactly what happened in a little bit. Please hold for that sad outcome. What was so sad about it? You probably can already guess. 2 out of 5 counterfeit pills that are seized today contain enough fentanyl to kill someone. So think about that. If I were to roll the dice 5 times, 2 out of 5 times you're dead. I mean, those are not good odds. We can't just be in the old school mentality of like, oh, back in the day. It's not back in the day. This stuff is very, very potent. It's hard to keep up with what's going on in the world, especially with something like Snapchat. When you have over 5.5 billion snaps posted on a daily basis. So I think, again, doing this long enough, almost daily doing seminars all around the country, this is what everyone wants me to talk about. Everyone wants to ask me about, I was in Vegas a few days ago and it was a specific opioid presentation, but I made sure to tie it all to everything. I just want you to get a good look at these pictures here. This is kind of your teaser. This is fentanyl. So you hear about powders, patches, swabs, pills, chalk looking, Play-Doh looking. There's no right or wrong form. Blues are still the predominant pills, and you see some of them up there in this photo, but I'm going to get into it as we progress, how available and how cheap some of this stuff has become. But bigger picture, right? We tend to think we're bigger risk takers when we're younger. True, fact. So let's talk about today's youth, the Gen Zers, right? The 13 to 24-year-olds. Young group that seems to be pretty stressed out. You know, I think as an adult, I handle stress pretty well. I don't even think that I have a lot of stress unless something extreme happens, like a death or, you know, loss of a job or something like that. But you're going to see that 46% of Gen Zers think their stress level is a 7 out of 10 or higher. So how are they coping with that? Well, when they don't have a lot of life experience, they're not coping well. Who are they getting help from? Some of you are probably sitting there right now with your kid and you're thinking, well, maybe your kid will talk to me, talk to the parent. Parents and school-based resources tend to fall towards the bottom in terms of someone you're going to go to for help. One thing I didn't say to you guys is that I'm an adult, or try to be, right? I don't have kids. Now, that doesn't make me not credible. I've been doing this for a really long time. Most people that really know me think I have a handful of kids because kids are always around me. They're my friends' kids. I fall under trusted adult. You know how many other kids will come talk to me because I'm not their mom? They're also going to go to their friends. So I applaud some of the people on here that have kids listening or just are taking this class because they want to take notes. And if you guys want the PowerPoint, we'll give you that too. You want this information, I hope, so you can talk to kids. We want kids to be informed and be advocates so that they can speak to each other, because it seems like that's where they're getting a lot of their information. And we don't want them to utilize pills as a strategy for coping, but 84% of them see using pills as a good reason for dealing with stress and anxiety. And I just showed you how many of these pills are fake. We adults might know, again, from the news, just being older, might hear and know that something like fentanyl is dangerous, right? One pill can kill. So we have a perceived risk. Kids don't necessarily know right off the bat that these drugs are bad. we hear about the old school drugs. So my point is we've got to heighten awareness. We've got to get people to really understand the just extreme nature of some of these drugs. And I promise I'll get into it, make it make sense. So I am sure I've done this long enough to know that a lot of people end up taking pictures of some of these slides. Please do, or like I said, write things down. Emojis tend to be a lot of conversation, a lot of text, a lot of communication without using words. So let's just go over some of the things. You know, you might see something like a pill that doesn't necessarily mean it's just a pill. You might see it tied to Xanax, but you might see a bar, like a candy bar for Xan bars, which is really common. So under dealer, plug is really big. You might see someone text about that. That's just they're looking for a connection. They're looking for someone to be the dealer of the drugs. You might see a marijuana leaf. I said marijuana leaf. It doesn't mean it's the universal. It doesn't mean that's just for marijuana. It can be the universal sign for drugs, like a code for, you know, all drugs. High potency stuff like rocket chips, fuel tanks, gasoline. Some of those mean synthetic. Here's a closer up on this one. Crystal, glass, ice, the cocaine ones. There's the dealer one with the plug. Okay, I want to ask everybody on this next one. Again, I don't have you right in front of me, but I wonder if people just looking at this know what this means. And I almost wish I could ask people to like guess. But just take a look at this for a second. And you want to know where this came from? This is literally from a 16-year-old girl's account on her Instagram that she posted this. Now that you thought about it, I just wish I could hear, but here. Show. There we go. She's basically saying, hey, are you shopping? Hit me up in a text. I got some fentanyl, which is M30s, and there is an emoji with like a little blue circle and an M. It's commonly used for fentanyl. Little diamonds for crystal meth. And when I asked you if you guys knew what BHO was, butane honey oil, the wax, the dabs, the vape pens for the new marijuana concentrates. So sometimes words aren't even used to communicate. It's just pictures. This is an awesome website for you guys, smartsocial.com. I would write that one down or take note. There's a lot of ones that'll charge you. This one might, I'm just forewarning you, that when you get in there, it might say VIP package, very important parent. You don't have to pay for it. This is one that's completely free. Oh, I love that someone guessed. See, I can't open the chat and talk on here. Very, very good, right? That you knew that it was call me, text me for the, I think kids nowadays text, right? Even I don't answer the phone half the time. So bad. Smartsocial.com. Definitely check that out. Okay. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what age you are. You will not forget 2020, right? There was fear, anxiety. We didn't know what was going on. But the way a lot of people dealt with the stress was by using substances. So not only did we see a spike in use, we saw a spike in deaths. I want to put a little bit of this in perspective. Does anyone know who this is? Again, kind of rhetorical because I can't really see everyone, you know, unless you type it in. I think people should know who this is. Ooh, someone's chatting. I like this. I like the interactive. Kiki. Joe gets a prize. You guys didn't know? I'll give you shows. You can text me later. Kiki Camarena was the DEA officer. I guess it says his name there too. Was the DEA officer who was taken, tortured, and murdered in 1985. And yep, taken and killed by the cartel. So sad, right? Because he knew going all the way back then that in Mexico, when no one believed anybody, no one's like, oh, US didn't even put a lot of officials down there, but he knew there was an abundance of marijuana being grown and that there would be a significant sale and trafficking of drugs. Okay, when I say that there wasn't a lot going on back then, you know what's insane is look at 1980 here. There, just say no, the war on drugs, 6,100 people died from drug overdoses. And Kiki was trying to just make this a heightened awareness. Okay, if you guys don't recall or know this, I'm telling you, it was such a big deal that the only 2 times in history that the US-Mexican border has been shut down were 9/11 and when they got Kiki's body back. They wanted Kiki back, and that's when Red Ribbon Week was like the beginning. they were tying red ribbons around trees in San Diego to memorialize him, and it took off as an event. I guess I just want everybody to really understand what Red Ribbon Week stands for and who it's about and why it's so important. I'm going to personalize this for you in a moment. Before I do, I want you to see that we went from 6,100 people dying back in 1980. 2020, we had over 93,000 people dying. And some of you probably think that's the, most up-to-date data that I have. Nope. We're now at someone dying of a drug overdose every 5 minutes in this country. Every 5 minutes. It's insane. Fentanyl's leading the way. It suppresses your breathing. I'll get into this in depth. But, Kiki knew what he was trying to say back then, and this has progressively gotten worse. I do want to just share, like on a personal note, probably guess by just looking at him, but that is Kiki Camarena Jr. And I had the opportunity to meet him in just November at a cartel conference in Texas. That is also Kiki Sr.'s widow, Mika, and Junior's mom. They still do a lot in Kiki's honor to remember. But again, for anyone watching this with family, Kiki Jr. was only 11 years old when his dad was taken, tortured, and murdered. And he said that he remembered a conversation that he had with his dad at 10. And his dad was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And he's like, "You." And Kiki Sr. was like, "Nope. It's way too dangerous to be in this field." And then a year later, he was gone. So sometimes I tell these stories because I don't think people realize like the behind the scenes of what it takes to get these drugs into our country. So if I tell you 12 million fentanyl pills came through Arizona in 2021, I realize we have people everywhere on this call. It was 20 million total in 2021. You think that's a lot? Hold that number in your head because I'm going to show you where we are today. I do want you to kind of just pay attention to these pills. These are what you're mostly going to see is the blues, the M30s. It's why I showed you the emoji, because these are the most commonly pressed form of fentanyl tablets nowadays. Knowing that I have kids on here, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't briefly talk about alcohol. I would just say this. We know that Just Say No flopped for a reason. No one wants to be told necessarily what to do. But if you're talking to a kid about risks, behaviors, and brain development, I like to remind them that when you're 16 years of age, even before that, you're trying to learn the skills to operate a piece of machinery that could potentially kill you. I could have just said you're trying to learn to drive. But the reality is all of you adults are probably shaking your head. Like, yeah, that big, heavy piece of machinery can be deadly, especially when your brain is developing the skills to operate it and you mix alcohol into the equation. It impairs your judgment, your response times, your reaction times. Even tonight when I was driving, coming home, I noticed a car was coming super fast, so I didn't turn in front of it. That's experience. And sometimes a kid's not going to have that. So I think the biggest thing is just getting kids to tie their decisions and behaviors to bigger picture. It makes sense that traffic fatalities are the #1 cause of death with our kids when they're drinking. All right, now that I think I've got your attention, I guess I really just want you guys to realize that drugs don't discriminate. This stuff is absolutely everywhere. I applaud everyone that's logging in. It sounds like from Texas to Virginia to Australia. This is community concerns for all races, all ethnicity, socioeconomic background, for everybody. You're going to see that I'm not a fan of saying no. I'm a fan of being in the know. KNOW, being a knowledgeable person. So I forewarned you that this is not necessarily aggressive, but just truth. Let's look at vaping in the bigger picture of what it does to people. You are going to see that it burns the lining of lungs, that it impairs breathing. You're going to see this in kids. You're going to see this, and I think a 25-year-old's a kid. I'm going to show you 25-year-old, 17-year-olds, 16-year-olds. Can you imagine burning the lining of your lungs to the point where you need a double lung transplant when you're 16? I mean, it's happening. So kids always, I feel like, have the most, I don't say the most, but kids just don't hold back. They have some pretty intense questions. And a lot of times they'll ask me things like, well, what's worse, smoking or vaping? And although I don't condone either, I will tell you this, what smoking took decades to do, vaping's doing it in months and years. And I'll show you that. So you've got to heat up your little oil. I guess I didn't explain to you guys that before my career community bridges. I was doing tobacco education classes for kids. So over 20 years ago, I would say things like, good thing there's no such thing as liquid nicotine, because one pure drop would be dangerous enough to poison someone. Well, now it's the #1 seller. Crazy, right? Well, you still can't drink the liquid. You have to heat it up to over 450 degrees in order for it to become a vapor so you can inhale it into your lungs. Please understand that that vapor has to recool and resolidify itself at some point, so it can leave oil droplets trapped in the lungs, which causes the burning and the impairment. What if that product blows up? You have to heat to 450 degrees. What if those little particles, plastics, shoot in your eyes and you lose your vision? A lot of people don't think about that. You can see from pictures, it shoots out your teeth. I'll show you a close-up of that in a moment. I've said it, I'll say it again. 15,000 flavors. 15,000 flavors that can get into the wrong hands of puppies, toddlers, unsuspecting individuals. And then when we talk about nicotine addiction, no one takes out a cigarette in class, right? Like you didn't back in the day, you don't now. It's too tangible. But if you guys are looking at me, I wish I had something like super small right in front of me. Here's my headphones. I have these really tiny little running headphones. But if I put like the end of it in my finger and then just hold it in my fist, we're literally seeing kids sitting in the classrooms, like just taking hits out of their fists of the puff bar, the jewel, the product, the vape, the end, electronic nicotine, just hits. So they're using it in schools, they're using it in the bathrooms, they're using it in their, I'll show you a video, I'll give you a video reference about kids said that this is the last thing I do before I go to bed, and this is the first thing I do when I wake up. I reach into my nightstand, I take a hit. So frequency is up, which means addiction, full-blown addiction in our teens. Maybe this is the slide that adults want to take pictures of, because what this really means is slang terms associated with vaping everything. So basically though, in the first column, hits and rips of jewels and puff bars, just to name some. Exhaling clouds, talking about like pens and carts, vape pens and cartridges. I'll get into the ends. You're dripping your product into your mod or your Sorin. Some pods are preloaded. But I also explained to you guys that you can vape your, your vape juice, your nicotine, your marijuana oils. It starts to look like dabs of wax. It's a very concentrated oil. If you guys write down 710, because it's no longer 420, if you write down 710 and flip it upside down, it spells oil. Shatter, juice, honey, diamonds. That's not a typo. This isn't just like crystal meth, but you can have a crystal form of marijuana. So I just really want you guys to understand that today's concentrates, the low oil bases, are different and more potent than we've ever seen in history. This is not COVID. This is a 25-year-old who can't breathe because he vaped and his lungs collapsed after vaping for a year. Now, I know some kids are like, with kids like 25, I'm like, don't even say that's old. But that's why sometimes I'm like, fine, here's a 17-year-old. This is a 17-year-old who can't breathe. He started vaping in 8th grade. And all of a sudden, elevated heart rate, super tired, constant throwing up. Doesn't look fun. All because of vaping. Breathing matters. Sometimes it's just basic. You're never going to hear me do doctor talk. I'm not a clinician or a counselor, you guys. It's just understanding that if you were born, like lucky enough to be born with healthy lungs, you should do everything you can to maintain and keep them. You're going to hear me come back to this lung thing a lot because I'll say it now. The #1 cause of death with an opioid overdose is respiratory arrest. Your breathing fails. What does vaping do? Destroys your lungs. Our organs matter. Sometimes when you really say it like the correct way, it almost makes sense. ENDS, ENDS, it's electronic nicotine that's delivered, I say, to your respiratory system. So it's a heightened temperature like we talked about. You have these little cilia, hair-like structures that should be protecting your lungs, keeping out particle and debris, kind of like the little nose hairs, right? They're supposed to do their job, keep out particle and debris. But if you're a vapor or a smoker, you burn away the protective lining of your lungs and you're more susceptible to getting sick. Keywords that we've been hearing a lot in the last couple of years. I've said it and I'm showing it. Just look at the bottom line. Oil droplets may be left over when the liquid cools, causing breathing problems and inflaming lungs. That's what happens when a lot of this stuff recools and resolidifies. How bad is it? Well, here's a kid that's facing a double lung transplant. The surgeon's never seen anything like this. It's a 16-year-old athlete. And this kid honestly thinks, oh, I got it. No big deal. Sure, I vaped. But he tells himself, tells his friends, I'm going to quit in August because school's starting and I'm an athlete. I'm a runner, so I shouldn't even be doing it. So he quits vaping. By October, he's under surgery, right? He spends 29 days on life support as a 16-year-old with a 10% chance of survival. In recovery, he's taking 20 pills a day because they had to go into his chest. This is just hard to imagine, right? Go into his chest, cut out the lungs he was born with, and put a stranger's in and hope they work. I know adults realize that transplant surgery is not a given, no guarantees. And when we're younger, we tend to be more invincible. I just don't want kids to think, well, now he's fine. Because I have a friend who's a 19-year-old kid here in Arizona who publicly speaks with me on some events. He took, as he says, one bad vape. How do you know it's going to be one bad one? He wasn't really into vaping. He'd done it. He just didn't like it. But a girl was like, strawberry kiwi. And he didn't even want to taste it because he thought it sounded gross. But she convinced him. As I explained, in short, she went home. He went to the hospital for the next 3 weeks. He burnt the lining of his lungs from a strawberry kiwi flavored vape. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Doctors are asking him more questions than actually, giving him information. They tell him, unless your lungs improve, you're literally looking at a double lung transplant. And they were honest with him and said, your life expectancy then would be 5 years. I can't imagine someone telling me now I only have 5 years to live, let alone as 18-year-old kid. He lucked out. This girl's lucking out. I just don't want them to have to learn the hard way. Like sitting in the hospital bed saying, now I want to start a no vaping campaign. Like Dante, this kid, works with us, right? He learned the hard way. And now he's a public speaker with us. His voice is definitely heard. I will tell you that one. It's common, you guys. Over 2.5 million US kids are vaping. And please look at that red box and understand that a majority of them, 85% and up, started this stuff because it tasted good. Back in the day, it was one distinct smell, a nasty tobacco. And now you've got what? Cool Mint, Mango Tango, Fruity Pebbles, ice cream cone. There's every flavor you can think of. Sometimes you take these nicotines, remember they're liquid, and you might get a preloaded, but you can also get one that you drip in. But if you drip it and get on your fingers and rub your nose, touch your contact, eat your food, you can be poisoned just from not washing your hands. And we'll talk about that with fentanyl as well. Here's some examples of the flavors. The next slide is what's going to make you mad because it looks like cereal and candy. But I really just want you to understand, kids are being baited. Popcorn, ice cream, donuts, cereal bases, candy, just like a little change in the image or the wording. And this is the tobacco industry's attempt to get kids to follow their products. Some of these products might 1,500 puffs. When Juul first came out, we were talking 225 to 250 puffs. This is 1,500 chances to burn your lungs. It's cute and it's tiny. And it can get into their hands. And I'm not afraid to put that on a kid. I'm like, how would you feel if you left your vape juice in your backpack and you put it on the floor and your little puppy got into it, or your little sister, or you're at a friend's house, and it's your friend's little sibling gets poisoned by this stuff? We need to start thinking beyond ourselves. Brief history, because I think it's so interesting. Juul got caught, first of all. When I say that they targeted kids, they got caught. They're paying a lot of money because they come out with this product that looks like a USB drive. And this is a starter kit, what you're looking at, with 4 flavor pods. 4. One flavor pod is equivalent to a pack of cigarettes, nicotine. So you're getting 4 packs of cigarettes to start. These things used to go for $50. Now we're down to $5 because of the competitors. When I say competitors, here's some friends of Juul. I mean, I understand people are like, well, I think they're going to ban Juul. They're not going to ban Juul. And even if they got rid of one, there's other options. So just get familiar with what these things look like. You'll see them in neighborhoods. I hope you don't see them in your house. When I say Juul got caught, they're paying out $440 million to 33 states because they use social media to market children with their flavor campaign. That might sound like a lot of money, but for a company that's worth billions of dollars, it's not. And when I say billions, Altria, parent company to Philip Morris, invested 12.8, let's round up, $13 billion into Juul in 2018. Why did they do that? Well, cigarette sales were faltering, and you've got Philip Morris Altria saying, hey, we used to be the #1 youth cigarette. We can show you how to be the #1 vape product. And they partnered up. And a lot of their campaigns are just obvious. People go, well, how nowadays? They don't have print. No one really looks at, I shouldn't say no one, I like print. But you see a lot of social media, visual, online, YouTube presence that popularizes the products. I think that this is probably the most effective campaign photo, is letting people understand that, again, one pod is like putting 20 cigarettes worth of nicotine in your mouth, and it's highly addictive. There's a time we'll play catch up and I'll show you some of the marijuana stuff, but just look how cheap and cute some of this stuff is. Parents Against Vaping is a great website for you guys, parentsagainstVaping.org. You can join their webinars for free. If you want the PowerPoint or take a picture right now, you can look up on the CDC some of the guides that show you different product images so you're more familiar. I've only shown you a couple. Believe me, we could do just an hour class on vaping. I'm sure you can figure that out. Okay, here's your warning. Sorry if you're eating. Graphic photo warning. When this stuff blows up, it can shoot out your teeth, burn your hands. Remember I told you little particles of plastic can shoot in your eyes. This guy lost an eye. Again, it's not just a kid thing. The next guy lost 7 teeth and ripped a hole in his tongue. And I know it's a little bit graphic, but I think we need to understand these are small 450-degree devices, almost like a mini bomb going in your mouth. These things can blow up. They tell you that they don't even want these things charged with other devices because there's the potential for it to heat up too much. Great resource. I think it is. It's just something I thought was interesting. If you guys want to watch on Netflix, there's a show called Broken, and episode 2 is called Big Vape. These shows are social issue shows. So like one of them was about cosmetics or something like that. But this one is about vaping, and it's the one where I said the kids realize they're addicted to the stuff. Keep in mind that a lot of the stuff is still on store shelves. There's more that's allowed than not allowed. I just really want you guys to realize, if you've heard stuff in the media, not a lot has changed, especially since tobacco is the 6th largest industry in the world. They have a lot of money. I will tell you here in Arizona, quick note, because it kind of maybe gives hope, and I really don't know what's happening exactly around the world, but I do know in America, 300 cities and 5 states have successfully removed flavored vapes from store shelves. So here in Arizona, we're trying to get the city of Tempe to be the first city to remove the flavored vapes. Of course, we're running up against obstacles, but we should know more in the next month or two. Flavors Hook Kids AZ is a campaign. FlavorsHookKids.org is the national one, but it's where you guys can also pick up more information about some of the things I've been sharing with you tonight. Smokefree.gov, another great resource. Spanish version, English, for youth, for adults, everybody. Why did I talk so heavily about vaping? Not only is it a problem with nicotine, it's a problem with marijuana. So you see a lot of behaviors have just changed. I don't want to say smoking isn't happening, but at a youth standpoint, it's kind of out. People vaping is replacing smoking. Vaping marijuana with our teens has doubled in the last 7 years. Sadly, it's getting normalized, right? Like we see TV shows, we see like laws around our country. It's just kind of comical from the standpoint of looking at America that we say federally it's illegal, but we have different states with different laws. 37 states have medicinal laws, 20 have recreational. So there's a lot of loopholes. This looks like a boring slide, but this is actually probably one of my top 5 slides because it makes a lot of sense when you explain it about the teen brain and kids. Like I said with drinking or something, like if you were drinking, you're like trying to learn the skill to drive, they shouldn't be mixed. You're trying to learn skills to adult. And I say that because I work with kids. And a lot of kids always talk about adulting and wanting to be on their own, having their own money, their own rules, their own place. And I'm like, well, a lot of the skills that get you there are things that are developing when you're younger. So like when you're learning basic skills of how to stay focused, how to memorize things, use coordination, problem solving, it all matters, when you're younger because you apply it when you're older. But if you start using something like a high potency cannabis, a concentrated oil, which I'm going to show you, I'm going to say this right now. I have to tell you guys, if I were in front of you, it's funny. It's where I get my extra exercise in. I always say I squat and I get down to the floor and I say, old school marijuana strength potency, we're talking like 2%. And then I, start to stand up in the squat and I say, and the potency didn't jump from 2% to 12 to 22 to 52. We're up near 90% strength in the concentrates. So if you're using a very high strength THC based oil when you're a 15-year-old kid, when you're an 18-year-old kid, it can impact skill development. Now, keep in mind when I do this class, you guys, there's a lot of information that impacts everyone. But if you're an adult, I look at it this way. Adults, you do you, right? Because some kids aren't even making it to adulthood, right? If you're an adult and you've made it, I'm going to get into CBD and how that can benefit certain things. But what I'm really speaking about here is how I really don't think chemicals belong in the developing body and brain of a child. Because some of the marijuana today, look at the crystal form. That's not meth. The crystal form of this stuff, crystalline hash, is almost 100% pure THC. And I'll explain what THC does to you. But look in the middle, I'll zoom it in a minute. But those are edibles. You've got your leafy green, you've got vapes. There are a lot of different forms of marijuana that exist. I'll say it one time, THC, tetrahydrocannabinol. You wouldn't get high without it. And it is a naturally occurring substance, chemical found in the marijuana plant. But hydroponic growth, additive, this and that, there's ways to make it stronger. So hold for a moment. I'm going to show you that when you cook it with the butane to get an oil that looks like honey, just trying to make sense of this, that's what I'm talking about. That is the 90% potency. Mark my words, even pro-marijuana people will tell you that we're not talking leafy green like back in the day, because even a leafy green today can be like a 30%, 20% to 30% potency, 2 to 20. Oils are upwards of 90%. So you have something that's super strong. You have an increased likelihood of paranoia, panic attacks, violent outbursts, hallucinations. You go to back in the day, smoking a joint might have been just low grade, haha laughter and eating some extra food. So I'm not trying to make light of this. I'm just trying to be honest about this stuff. Because I even have friends that'll be like, oh, you just go against marijuana. I'm like, hold please, because I want to explain chemicals. THC, CBD, Delta 8, Delta 9, the list goes on and on. You can't just use the word marijuana as the umbrella. There's a lot that falls underneath it. So if for vaping an oil that's BHO, it's very, very strong. So even when you cook this stuff with that butane, there's a risk in manufacturing it, right? Butane alone, keep in mind, can cause a psychosis, delusions, paranoia, violent outbursts, even with people who have not ever experienced psychosis can react that way with just butane. And what's sad is the internet's going to pretty much teach you how to make this, right? We all have access to the internet. We'll talk about phones and access in a minute, a little bit. But what I really want you guys to think about is change of airflow. A fan kicks on, a door opens, a gust of wind happens. This process can blow up. So there's no sound, you're not missing anything. But let me show you a quick video. And I want you guys to watch. You're going to miss it because it's going to happen real fast, but then they'll show it in slow motion. This is a lab. This is a creation where a guy opened the door. You can see it ignites. Okay, now let's watch it in slow motion. I see there's questions, but I can't look at them right now because the video will stop. Watch in slow motion. When one friend's exiting, the other guy's got the torch down there. He's cooking the oil. The friend gets out of the room. The other guy's engulfed. Here comes, walls, doors, ceilings. He's got flames on his head, going the wrong way. When he turns around to get out of the room, watch what happens. The door shuts on him, and that's him engulfed in flames, burning. And this is a process. This is a lab. And the internet's trying to show you how to make this, right? I guess the rhetorical question is, does heat rise? Most of you are shaking your head. Another concern, who else is impacted? Because that image to me kind of represents like a off-campus college apartment. So even when I work with college kids, I'm like, you guys, I'm here to advocate for you all the way, but now you're a young adult. You got to advocate for yourself. If something looks weird, smells weird, seems illegal, it's okay to report it. You've got to speak up because this is environmental ripple effect. If I were doing like cop talk, we'd be talking about some of the stuff that's manufactured in the environment, in the wild and the outdoors, and then the pollutants and the poisons in the water that hurt animals. So there is a ripple effect. This isn't just about one person getting high. So this is not a typo. That's just showing you that there's a crystal form of THC out there in the diamond look, which is almost 100% pure. So CBD, cannabidiol. This is the one that you don't get high from, okay? So this is sales, this is everywhere, online, local stores. Trick trivia question. THC levels have been on the rise for decades. CBD levels have not moved. So I'm going to back up here. I want you to think about this. If this is going to help an adult sleep, you do you. If it's going to help with their anxiety, great. It helps with seizures. I, again, keep saying that I don't think chemicals belong in the developing body and brain of kids. Let's draw an asterisk right now. If there's a 13-year-old kid who's suffering from seizures, he might be a great candidate for CBD because it can cause the seizures to subside. So you got to understand that a lot of this has got uniqueness to this. So I'm trying to get distracted because now I'm opening up the questions. Yes, we are recording it, you guys. We did do that, and I will make sure. Oh, Debbie's responded. I'm trying though to get in here to look at all this. And yes, PowerPoint slides. I'm a sharer. Debbie can get them to you. I'm going to give everybody my contact information as well, because you know how cool this would be to have some of you that are like Australia, Texas. I hope my Chicago family joined. I could do this kind of a talk. We can do a 30-minute, an hour, hour and a half, whatever, for anywhere. So keep that in mind. I'm going to give you guys all my contact information because you probably already get it. This is a topic that's relevant to absolutely everybody. And this is the part that's probably going to tick you off, especially if you got kids or no kids. I don't even have kids, like I said, but I think about my little dogs that are sitting right here. They'd be dead if they ate this because look at 400 milligrams of THC. Some of you are probably thinking, oh, what an exaggerator, death. Let me show you medicinal dosing. 1 to 2.5 milligrams. This is 400. It says on the end, oh, tear it and share it. You're not supposed to have this whole thing. This is a very high dose in its full serving size. 1 to 2.5 milligrams might ease some pain, stress, and anxiety. It's for your new users. Go to the middle. 15 to 30 milligrams is going to cause some euphoria, and it may impair your coordination and alter your perception. This almost sounds like drinking and driving. 400. You get to the end of this chart and it only goes up to 100. 50 to 100 milligrams. Now we're talking about the opposite of the intention because now you got rapid heart rate, nausea, and stomach pain. You do not want this getting into the hands of really anyone. I was thinking like kids and pets, because if they take too much, it can cause an overdose. But sadly, let me give you an example of an overdose with an adult. I show these pictures for a lot of reasons, right? Sorry, I should grab a drink so I can keep going. Kellogg's, Hershey's, you can see why they sued. Pop-Tart, it's not meant to be comical, but I'm just pointing out that an 8-year-old kid's not going to notice that, let alone like a 4-year-old, maybe even some adults. But look at the one in the corner that says Karma Candy. That made international news. And I want you guys to understand, when I say international news, in 2014, when Denver legalized their marijuana, a 48-year-old man, not a child, he's a husband, he's a father of 3 boys, he buys this product and he tells his wife, I bought this legally, I'm going to do this tonight. And he explains, it's not like I'm at a bar, because if I were at a bar and I were drinking, the risk could be driving home. He's like, I'm following the directions. He cut the serving size down because it was, 2, so he cut it in half. He still took in 101 milligrams THC. I'm going to tell you right now, a little bit extreme story, guys, but his wife calls 911. She's like, okay, I know this is legal and everything, but my husband is totally tripping out, hallucinating, talking crazy. He's talking about death, violent stuff. There's a family gun in the house. He ate this marijuana. I know it's legal, but we're just scared because, I got 3 sons that are watching their dad act like this. And she says, is there anything you can do to help me? The call ends 11 minutes in when he shoots her in the head. The whole world changed for that family, right? Those 3 boys watched their dad shoot mom. Mom died. Dad went to prison for 30 years. Dad spoke out from his prison cell in 2017 saying this was not the marijuana high he had expected. I guess what I'm trying to show you is we cannot, compare things to the 80s and the 90s and even the early 2000s. We're evolving in the world of drugs. This dad was saying, I made a mistake, like it wasn't what I expected. These kids lost both of their parents in an instant. So it just, if it comes up in conversation, right? Like, oh, marijuana back in the day, did you do it? You can have the conversation all you want, but it's not the same thing. When you're having even leafy greens being manufactured to smell and look like sugar candy, we've come a long way in that we're trying to make everything appealing to a kid. Apps like TikTok even kind of promote the natural form of some of the ones that are still out there. Like, again, it won't make a lot of sense to you with the chemical names, but they'll be like, well, weed light is Delta 8. And Delta 8, according to USDA, falls under the Farm Bill Act. So, TikTokers are like, this one's legal. This one's a lighter version. But there are still serious health risks associated. It hasn't been evaluated. It's just, there's a lot of conflict, right? Between FDA, DEA, USDA, all the acronyms are fighting. And yet we still have this available to our youth. And it might pop up in a vape cartridge. So I think you guys are trying to get how I tried to put this all together tonight. Sometimes it's just the behavior. We went from old school smoking to current stuff, vaping. And what are you vaping? Is what form of nicotine, what form of THC, or could it even be fentanyl? I skipped some of the slides because I've said it all, but please read the headlines. You have vape pens testing positive for fentanyl around this country in schools. And again, I'm sure I kind of get backlash when people go, well, we haven't seen it here locally. It doesn't mean it's not happening, or maybe it hasn't been reported. I'm just not afraid to put it out there. The news picked up on the whole fentanyl pills and tried to, heighten awareness. I want your heightened awareness on all drugs at this point. If you vaped fentanyl, you could die the first time you touch it, because fentanyl is the most deadly drug in the world currently. So we'll get into that. Opioids.
Oh, quick question, Stephanie. Sorry.
Please. No, I can take a sip.
What would you say are the effects of long-term heavy daily use of marijuana?
I love the question because people want to, I don't know if the question is, you could chime back in, you guys, if you want. It's just about the chemical or about the behaviors of vaping and smoking. And the reason I'm pausing on that was because someone asked me after the fact this morning about vaping and smoking and like first, second, and third hand smoke. That's something we also have to think about, that the vapor acts just the same way. In terms of long-term effects, psychosis isn't something to mess around with. I know people that have like volunteer with their day jobs. They'll help out with like juvenile delinquent stuff or jails and what have you. And some of the effects they see with people, they assume, oh, that's like meth. And it ends up being marijuana. So we're starting to see them, some of these drugs coincide. They're not necessarily categories completely different like we used to, and make marijuana just some plant-based, something that got smoked that was a less potent stimulant. Now, because it's synthetically altered, cooked with butane, meth is your original synthetic, cooked with pseudoephedrine. That's where you're going to start seeing long-term effects, because this isn't just smoking a plant. You know what I mean? I thought it starts to open this because I see some questions.
And she said behaviors and thinking was
Yeah, I
what.
see that now.
Okay, thank you.
And if I didn't answer things, you guys, let's keep talking. I'll make sure at the end of this, we can just unmute and make sure that we have a conversation about this. I'm just trying to give the overview, and I appreciate you, Marianne, asking about that, because again, it's not old school marijuana at all. Completely different, which I think you guys get. Okay, even today at a principal meeting, a principal said to explain the opioid crisis better. And I was like, oh, of course, because I don't think it's really been explained. So an opioid could be your prescription painkillers, which this country has been overprescribed. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm not trying to say pain doesn't matter. Pain matters. This is a class about understanding the trend that impacted us in a hurtful way. So you had your painkillers. Bigger sister is a drug called heroin. And some people are like, oh, who does heroin? It's out there. I'm going to show you Time Magazine's photo of the year in 2016. It was about heroin overdoses, because heroin can look like a pill. And look what everyone's talking about on the daily: fentanyl. So they're all related to each other. Because I exited out. Okay, there we go. This slide. Okay, you guys, this slide again, when I say top 5, here's one of them. How crazy is this? Just digest this. Even when I talk to kids, I'm like, think about America as a whole. We are only 5% of the world's population. We're little, but we consume over 80% of the world's supply of opioids. That's crazy to me. And I saw a lot of head shaking today when I was in the class, you know, with the principals and stuff. And I said, you get what that means, right? That if we're consuming 80% of opioids, it's because America is needy and thinks they need a pill for every ailment. Oh, I want to lose weight. I need a pill. Oh, I'm tired. I need a pill. Oh, my head hurts. I need a pill. Oh, I can't sleep. I need a pill. Oh, I'm too awake. I want to go to sleep. I need a pill. Oh, I need to wake up. I need a pill. We've got to find other modalities, therapies, activities. And again, when I say it's important, I'll say it multiple times. I'll show you the slide, but let's just say it now. Read a book. Go for a walk, pet a dog, color, art therapy works. I love when my watch goes off and it's like, take a breath. Clearly, a lot of you are telling me to take a breath, I'm sure. But we need to just calm and not over worry and rely on medication, because you know who else looks at this data? In Arizona, our next door neighbors are the Sinaloa cartel. Sinaloa cartel can do supply and demand real quick. If America demands the opioids, they can supply it, and they're going to make a lot of money, and they're going to hurt a lot of people. Okay, let's put this all together. I see some questions popping up, but let's put this together real quick, because this is not to point fingers and, like I said, be a jerk about this. This is just, let's do current history. Let's just do like late 90s to today in the opioid crisis. So you have in 2001, Joint Commissions kind of saying, well, we think pain is another vital sign, right? It's like blood pressure, heart rate, and oxygen, but it's really not, because you can measure all of those things. And the way that they were measuring then was, hey, circle, right? And if I saw your faces, I'm sure some of you'd be laughing, because you remember, maybe you went to the doctor, they're like, all right, are you down here at a 0? Circle. You don't have any pain, or are you up here at a 10 and you're dying? Someone that's seeking drugs is going to circle 10 every time, because they're going to get their drugs. And back then, if healthcare, nurses, docs didn't react to the patient, they would face, ridicule, fines, poor evaluations, what have you. So American Medical Association had to step in. And in 2016, they're like, okay, this is not a vital sign. It's a symptom, but it's not a vital sign. But by then it's too late. We're in the middle of the opioid crisis. So put it all together. Look at this chart. We're in the middle of it. I just said in 16 when the AMA says we're done. Well, it's almost at the end of it. 1999, increase in opioid overdose deaths, wave 1. Okay, look at the fact that you don't see 1996. 1996 is when Purdue Pharma introduces a new drug to the market called OxyContin. And they say this new oxycodone called OxyContin is not addictive. They actually emphasize that it is less than 1% chance that you'll get addicted to it. I'm sure some of you are laughing and rolling your eyes because if they really said there's less than a 1% chance you'll get addicted to it, they had a label made. The FDA was bought, sadly and true, because then Purdue Pharma employed the guy that made the label. Things were out of control, so much so that within 3 years, people are dying and they're desperate. Because here, look at the withdrawal effects. I'm not going to show you a pamphlet. I'm going to show you truth. I'll give you the cartoon reaction of you get physically addicted to this stuff, and you see on my hands up, you can get hooked in as little as 5 days. A good doctor nowadays will be like, don't stay on any OxyContin or any opioid more than 5 days. Because if you try to stop after, you might experience nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, muscle pain, bone pain, tremors and shakes, freezing 1 minute, sweating the next. Well, let's just do common sense. If you're the user and you feel like this because you stopped using, you're probably going to keep using. But I use this information to explain to kids. This is probably why it's best to never start. But it's so frustrating in America, right? Look at how much we want. Look at athletes. Look how we mask the pain even in a high school kid so they can keep playing. We got to think bigger picture because it ties back to this opioid crisis. I'm only referencing wave 1. So you get addicted, you're going to pay any price. These pills that were 10, 20, 40, 80 milligram pills, they were going for $1 per milligram. So an 80 milligram pill was costing $80 on the street. What if you need 3 a day? Well, now you see all the criminal activity that gets tied to this. And you understand why there was pharmacy robberies happening and they didn't steal the money. They just still took the pills. Wave 2 is heroin. It's how heroin became a huge problem. And some of you recall this, like I said, with Time Magazine and photos and videos of people like dope sick, slumped over, looking like they're death. And then now what are we living in right now? Wave 3, the fentanyl crisis, the synthetic drug. So if you guys will bear with me, like I said, we'll be done early so we have room for questions. I'm going to show you a video that'll really grab your attention. And I really need you to understand it's just where we are today. That it's like the American cartels operating when you've got a Purdue Pharma. But like I said, it was just everything collided at once. Pain is the 5th vital sign and approvals of new drugs. We saw 1 million Americans die in 20 years. And I'm really sorry if someone was personally affected by this. I realize when I do these seminars, there's no 6 degrees of separation. It's like 1. We were all impacted by this. Every age group has seen an increase in fatalities. It's awful. Okay, I'll say this now before I show it to you. And I don't even like saying this. But the rate of drug overdose deaths for our 10 to 14-year-old population, yes, it does exist, tripled in 1 year. Drug fatalities for 10 to 14-year-olds tripled. So you need to understand that even us adults who got manipulated with these big, powerful drugs can get into the hands of young people. And now we're in this culture where there's fake pills and they're tainted with fentanyl. If you look at this image, people were ticked. They were showing up at Sackler museums. That's the last name of the family that created the OxyContin. And they were saying, shame on you, Sackler. And they were laying dead with pill bottles to say, you killed my loved one. That was their protest, which is heartbreaking. So Sackler still exists. Purdue Pharma still exists. They pay their $6 billion in settlements. And they get to keep operating, producing their drugs, which will allow them to pay their debt. I can't see everybody. I hope the sound works because I wanted to ask if anyone and everyone should, had seen Dope Sick. Let's just say this morning, by the time I was done talking to all those principals. They're all like, well, how do I watch it? I'll get Hulu for free for 30 days. I'm like, get it for free. It's only 8 episodes. It gives you the history of everything I just explained. So if you don't mind, since I'm a fast talker and we're ahead of time, let's take 2 minutes to see what this show is really about. And then the sound should play.
I think you have to share the sound.
Oh,
Should
is it
be-
not?
Yeah,
ahead.
it's under the options at the top, I think. Or under more.
Uh-huh.
Maybe. Do you see it?
And it says share sound.
Yes, perfect.
Oh, well now, and then I just play it and it plays.
It should, yeah.
I know most people don't think about us up there in the mountains. Many of my patients are miners. It's dangerous work, and they carry the burden of building this nation on their backs. They're in pain. These people, my people, trusted me. I can't believe how many of them are dead now.
We've begun looking at something that could be big.
OxyContin.
Purdue Pharma, they've been marketing the drug as something that's non-addictive when it clearly is.
All your doctors are going to be asking, how is this even possible? Your most effective talking point are these magic words.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%.
Less than one.
They told me that less than 1% would become addicted.
If OxyContin does what I think it can, it could soon become Purdue's first billion-dollar drug.
Purdue continues to lie about the drug's safety to doctors, to patients, and the FDA. We have a major case here.
Addiction rates, overdoses, and crime are on the rise across the country because of this drug.
I think maybe the medicine might be just a tad more addictive than you said.
I can't live like this anymore.
Our community is ground zero for a national catastrophe.
Purdue will not move unless we punch hard.
This is not our fault. These people want to be addicted.
I want top executives to feel some pain.
It's crucial they understand we've created the greatest painkiller in the history of human civilization. I think I can make this the biggest drug in the world.
That doesn't grab your attention. I don't know what is. Thank you, Debbie. I had no idea about the sound. I see someone said great series. I recall having a friend doctor shopping. Yeah, it was very easily. So, even we all get educated at some point. That's why we do these seminars. Didn't understand the prevalence, right? And then you learn. That's what I was telling people today. Like, even watch it with your family, talk to your kids, so that they understand it's not just kid manipulation with something like tobacco. You don't know what you don't know. We were manipulated. The book Empire of Pain gives a deeper history into the Sacklers and even back into their days of selling Valium and saying that wasn't addictive. They have history in marketing some of their drugs and misleading the public. That's why I think education, again, so big, so we can make better decisions about this stuff and come up with other modalities. Now, I show you all that stuff, and this ain't going to make you happy either, but you look at something like Disuvia, FDA approved, 1,000 times stronger than morphine, and you're reading that right, 10 times stronger than fentanyl. So sometimes, now, I was trying to word carefully, but money matters. Money matters. There's a lot of thing where money overtakes priority of people and health, and it's very frustrating. So last couple of things here. Look at heroin. It went from single digit purity, like marijuana, to almost 90%. So heroin is very potent. It's very effective. It's just like the other opioids. It'll suppress your breathing. It can look like a pill form. I mean, you guys, I'm in Arizona. This is from Scottsdale PD. I didn't just pull this off the internet. This is them showing me that it's so easy to press heroin to mimic the look of an oxycodone. This is not death. This is an overdose. This was Time Magazine's photo of the year in 2016. Please note, it's 2 adults in the front seat and a 4-year-old kid sitting in the back seat. You know who took this photo? An officer, a cop in the afternoon who was ticked off because it's 3 p.m. and kids are getting off the school bus seeing this. And he was sick of overdoses in his community. So if you want the story, again, I can give you the PowerPoint. You can watch the video with the interview. People, even little ones, are being impacted by this. Now that I, opened up, I'll close with all this stuff. Fentanyl. All those pictures that I showed you, the powders, the pills, the colors, that stuff is 50 times stronger than heroin, 100 times stronger than morphine. Fentanyl became the #1 cause of death for adults in this country, 18 to 45 years of age. And people are like, no way, I wouldn't do it. Unintentional, accidental poisonings. This stuff's being cut and contaminated into anything. Take a picture, memorize, look at just look how little it takes, you guys. That looks like minuscule amounts of grains of salt. And that is a deadly dose of fentanyl. And what if you're standing there and you put your hand down and your hand touches this and then you rub your nose? If you don't think it can be fatal, I'll show you a deceased 17-year-old kid that did just that. All right, Debbie knew I was changing slides as you guys were logging in. I was just updating. I wasn't changing. I was just trying to give you the 2022 data. Do you remember a little bit ago when I said in 2021, 20 million fentanyl pills came into America? 1 year later, 50.6 million. 50.6 million pills. What does that equate to? I'm going to come back to the slide. What does that equate to? 379 million doses. That's enough to kill every American in this country. I just want you guys to think about how prevalent this is. Popular. How cheap is it? Please take note of here in Arizona being a border state, this stuff can be as little as $1. $1 a pill. So some of the officers that I'm friends with were working with Virginia task force, and they were seeing in Virginia that these pills were going for $60 to $80 a pill. Think about that. $1, 80 bucks. There's so much coming through Arizona that's just an abundance. We've heard a lot of cases where criminals try to evade, capture police, and throws this stuff out of a speeding car. And then you've got fentanyl pills all over our community that anyone could be picked up and poisoned from. So when I go back to this, I'll pause for a second. If anyone wants to take out their phone, you can scan that or, get that picture captured. And this is just, it takes you to the One Pill Can Kill campaign. I can come back to it if you want, because I won't get stuck here too long, because I really want to wrap up this and take some questions. But I just need you to understand as a country that there's a lot of this deadly drugs coming into America. What a lot of you probably log in to see is just to validate what the news has been telling you, is that M30s are showing up not only in blue, but in pink and purple and yellow, Skittle, sweet tart looking fentanyl. It can also look like chalk powders. Remember that picture I showed you at the beginning? It can be speckled. There's no right or wrong color. Write it down, take a picture. This is aired 3 times in the last 3 months on ABC. It is like a 2020 kind of special called Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. Promise you can just Google and pull it up. It's on ABC. And it gives a lot of what I've tried to pull together for you and interviews a lot of the people who've been impacted or affected by this. I told you about the cartels and the trafficking. I'm not trying to show you graphic like headlines, but these are headline news, just showing you that people are selling to high school kids. College kids are on spring break thinking they're using cocaine, and it's laced with fentanyl. People are trafficking it in their bodies, trafficking it in little pill bottles. Parents are having to explain Narcan to kids. I told you at the beginning that I would share a sad story with you about Snapchat. Okay, so if you got kids with you, I always tell the kids, I'm probably not going to be your best friend when I say what I'm about to say. But I don't think phones belong in bedrooms of kids, teenage kids overnight. Why? Limited life experience, teen brain, might make a bad decision. And if you haven't already read this, a 17-year-old kid here in Arizona was on his phone at 1:30 a.m. and he went on Snapchat requesting a Percocet. He ordered it at 1:30. It was delivered to his house at 3 a.m. He was dead, found dead at 5 a.m. by another kid. My point is, and you get it, he wouldn't have been on the phone if he didn't have the phone. He knew dang well that he was doing something that he shouldn't be doing because he's inviting strangers to his parents' house at 3 a.m. and opening the door to strangers at 3 a.m. to get pills, which happened to be tainted with fentanyl, which poisoned him and took his life. So again, I'm not trying to say like, kids, you're not responsible. Try to be responsible. Use your phone during daytime hours. I turn my phone on do not disturb so I can get sleep at night. But parents, you don't need to be your kid's best friend. I'm just trying to advocate for kids. I'm trying to save their lives. I'm giving you examples of how this drug is cut into everything from meth to marijuana, from pills to powders. Fentanyl's everywhere. I said it and I'm showing it to you. That drug deaths among 10 to 14-year-olds tripled in a year. That's over 200,000 years of lost lives, potential lives that kids could have lived. They didn't get to experience their 20s, their 40s, their 60s. They died. Fentanyl does have a medicinal history, right? Like it's used in end-of-life care to ease pain. But what are you guys looking for? This is the big one. They're blues. They're called the blues. They're the M30s. They're just about everywhere. And now you know how cheap they can be. Hannah was a 17-year-old girl that moved the fentanyl. She touched the pill that her boyfriend had. She moved it. She rubbed her nose. It was caught on, I keep pointing at cameras in my house. It was caught on family cameras. And the mom watched her kid go to sleep permanently 33 minutes after touching her face from touching fentanyl. That's why they used the Narcan. Okay, I was hesitant whether to show these last few slides, but I'm telling you about waves of opioid crisis. It's not just fentanyl. There's carfentanil, acrofentanil, furafentanil, U477. There's so many other derivatives, brothers and sisters of fentanyl. There's something that's been popping up around the country called nitazines, almost like a Frankenstein opioid, 40 times stronger than fentanyl. There's a bulletin you can look up. You can Google it so you can kind of get an idea of where this has been located. But Narcan exists as an opioid reversal medication that can get the breathing going again. It's not a be-all end-all. You'll still need emergency medical care. I would tell you guys, I kept both slides in here for a reason because I knew people would log in from all over. But getnaloxonenow.org will give you more of a national perspective on how to obtain fentanyl. That sounded awful. How to obtain fentanyl to stop the poisoning of fentanyl. How to obtain Narcan. It's like $75 if you buy it on your own. But if you go to getnaloxonenow.org or Naloxone AZ if you're local, you can find out different coalitions that will offer Narcan to fight this fentanyl crisis. I really think that everyone should carry it. I have a couple boxes of it. You never know if you're at a gas station, it's a family member, you're at Costco, someone overdoses. You could spray this up their nose and save their lives. I know schools are starting to carry it more often. Certain places like in LA, they've had so many overdoses that they're carrying it on their campuses. The last thing I'm just going to say before I kind of do Q&A is even methamphetamine with its new recipe that can deteriorate you can look like candy. And I don't want to overwhelm you, probably too late. I want to talk about, I'll try to give one quick positive and then we'll do Q&A. I just want to talk about how do we get here, right? I try to explain to you how we got here and the hows and the whys and where we are today, but we've got to come up with other things. So kids are watching this, parents, if they're not, come up with, if your kid loves music, let them play music. If they love singing, do it. If they love art, get involved. If they love fitness, a lot of people are, I don't want to do fitness. Go for a walk, get a dog. Another reason to walk, pet a dog. get a massage, meditate. Some of the adults that are local might have been like, wait, where did, what's his face? Channel 3's guy, Brandon Lee, where'd he go? Good friend of mine. I talk about him because he walked away from a lucrative career in the media, doing news, to painting. He literally runs paint classes 5 days a week to help people fill their time as opposed to using drugs to do art therapy, because Brandon is in recovery. He was a meth addict. So he was just tired of the stigma and the judgment when he was doing interviews, and now he's helping people. Some of you probably think I'm being silly when I talk about pet a dog. Dog owners are less likely to suffer from depression than those without pets. Okay, for those of you with cats, pet a cat, pet a dog. It elevates our serotonin and dopamine. It calms us. For anyone that's worried or thinking about a senior or grandparent, pet owners over 65 years of age visit their doctors 30% less than those without pets. You know, I tell you this big, ugly statistic about how America consumes 80% of the opioids. Over 70% of American households have a pet. You know, I love this question when you guys are live. I go, how many of you have an animal in your life that you love or care about? And hands go crazy, especially with kids. And usually kids are like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about my dog or my cat. And I love the excitement and the energy, because in my eyes, it's a natural high. It's an emotional high. And that said, you know, I can't just talk about animals without showing you my kids. They're actually sleeping right now. I said, put them on the camera. But I have Bricks and Ivy. They're my world. They're my happy. And there's a reason I kind of show you my happy. Again, it's my PowerPoint, right? But you got to find what your happy is, what your kid's happy is. Everybody has a love and a passion and something that motivates and drives them to be who they are and make better decisions. You know, true story. Like I said, I'm just being a real person with you guys. I like doing Zoom. The dogs are right here. A couple of weeks ago, I had to go to Arkansas, and I almost canceled the trip for work because one of my dogs, Ivy, the older one, was sick, and she's more important to me. So we have to find what is our focus, love in our lives to help us make better decisions. And I say that because I'm going to ask you guys to, we can unmute here in a second, because I want to know how many of you felt like you learned something new or helpful by logging into this, right? Like when I say don't waste time, believe me, I am hungry. I got to give them some more snacks. This house is a mess. I have things that I need to do with my time, right? But I chose you all. And I told Debbie, let's do this again before we even got started. I was excited about the abundance of people from everywhere. Our life is a precious gift, you guys. And we have got to use our days, our time wisely. And I truly hope and think you spent your time wisely. You spent over a little of an hour so far of learning new information that you can apply to your life with your loved ones. The remainder of the PowerPoint, sure, it has resources. I can come back to them, but I get to this slide and I go, I don't want people walking away thinking, well, Stephanie just scared me to death. I probably did that too. But we got to ask the challenge questions, right? Like, what are we missing that makes people want to engage in this? And I do think I opened up talking about Gen Z and about how stressed they are. But when I say how happy are we supposed to be, I think a lot of young people want rainbows and unicorns every day. I don't have rainbows and unicorns absolutely every day, although it looks like it, right? With the big fun earrings and stuff, the bright nails. I try to choose happy. It is a choice. But there's going to be days where it's hard and we're depressed and we have challenges and we're like at a 2 or a 3. But I think adults sometimes go, well, I have faith. I can see the light. I know I'll get through this challenge. We got to help the kids get through the challenge without the chemicals. We already have enough chemicals in our body naturally occurring. And I think, if we're going to be honest, we have to be honest with kids. Why don't we explain what withdrawal is, what addiction is, so that they know how bad and hurtful that can be? I told you, I'm not the girl that says just say no, but I'm the girl that says be knowledgeable, be in the know, so you can utilize refusal skills. I tell the kids, it's not like a parent just trying to be annoying with the tell them no or say no. It's a parent trying to give you skills so you can walk away, change the subject, laugh, say no thank you with just strength in a situation that you don't feel comfortable in. Because, right, adults, don't we use our refusal skills as well? Like, there's stuff you don't want to do, that you want to get out of. So those things, full circle, all the skills we learn when we're younger, that we don't want to get hurt by chemicals, we apply in adulthood. So just for those of you still on here, I'm glad there's still over 100 of you in here. Keep in mind, you serve so many purposes. You're not just a parent. I'm not even a parent, but I'm an aunt. I'm a friend. I'm a neighbor. Just keep in mind the impact that you have a lot with our youth today. And I'll pause here for a second. If anyone wants to write it down or take a picture, look at me. I'm not even afraid to put out my cell phone. That's at the bottom, 602-377-4591. And one of my email addresses, I have a couple. But if you want to get a hold of me for questions, information, scheduling other events, this is how you can do it. But I would really appreciate, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, you do something like this and you're the sole talker. I would love feedback, even if you don't want to say it, if you could put it in the chat. I'm going to stop the screen share here in a second so I can read the chat. But if anyone wants to stick around for a few, let's talk this out. I want to get your feedback. I want to know if you spent your time wisely. So thank you guys. Let's get out of here. We exit the screen show. I can open some of the chats. And if anyone wants to chime in, I appreciate the thank yous. I appreciate saying very informative. Thank you. Good job. Yay, I like reading them. You're a good teacher. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I had my kids listen and watch. That means so much to me. Oh, thank you guys. Oh, Dorcas, you're back on there too from yesterday. I'm reading the names too. You guys are so this reading them as they come up so fast. Yes, you can have the PowerPoint. Thank you. Please send. Fabulous talk. You know, yesterday, gosh, it's Tuesday, 2 days ago already, I was on a Sunday working, and a lot of the families I see that were on here and commenting were like, hey, can we get the invite to this event? We have to do more events like this, you guys, for everyone, because it's relevant. And someone commented, I see a couple of them on here, and someone texted me about this and said your delivery is just direct, honest. I hope I didn't offend anybody. I am trying to be just direct, honest, so that, you know, when you're trying to do a talk that's for, you know, a 14-year-old versus an adult, it's kind of hard to get in the middle. So I hope that I met in the middle with a lot of you guys. My former boss said that. She's like, there's teens, there's adults, and then there's you. I tried to be me. Oh, I saw Anne. I knew that you were going to jump on here. Social workers, they're all flying up. I'm glad we're recording this so I can look at all of these. Can we share the recording with other people? Yeah, if you have it saved to your computer, once it comes through, please, please, please share. So I'll say that again, you guys, please share this. Or if we want to do more events like this and someone's a proactive person on this call and you want to host it, I mean, that's what Debbie did. Debbie saw me at a conference, gosh, a while back, was it a year ago? It was a while back, and said, hey, let's do this. If you guys want to be creative, let's get outside the box. I always say the box is school, right? Like, this is outside the box. Oh, Susie Cadine. Oh, everybody's on here. This is so great. Anybody else? Comment, question? You want to say anything? Because I can't keep up with all the chat that's flying through. It's kind of cool. Thank you for the eye opener. Here, let me open up the Q&A. Make sure I didn't behaviors. I saw that. What's your input about gummies? Oh, someone asked about the gummies. I think they're over abused, and a lot of the times you do not know exactly what's in them. Drinking the liquid form of some of the THC chemicals, again, you can see where the serving size, too much. Why are the pills laced with fentanyl? Why would the drug dealers? This is awful to say, but a $20 bill, in some cases $5, is more valuable than a person. So the question was like, why would a drug dealer? Drug dealers don't have long-term planning, right? Let's be honest. They could overdose tomorrow. They could be taken out by a competitor. It's not like they're using a rational brain, like you're asking from a rational standpoint. Sometimes this is just about money, money, money. Let me elaborate on that too. Fentanyl's effective. If you have been an abuser of an opioid and you took the OxyContin and then you got into the heroin, you could actually use fentanyl. If you guys watch that show Poisoned, you'll see that fentanyl is a drug of choice for some people because they've built up a tolerance to it. Stephanie, can I schedule you? Yes, you can. Text me. I am half the time my voicemail is full. So email or text me. I'm just trying to respond to all the questions. Time well spent. Had my 18-year-old watch. Great info. You guys are great. You don't have to stick around any longer. We got done early. Oh, 7 o'clock. I'm sure there's a good show on, but really, what do I want you to go watch? Go watch Dope Sick. And honestly, if you watch it, want to text me about it, please do. I have to laugh that a teacher texted me last week and goes, I never binge watch anything. And she binged that and couldn't believe it. So, oh yeah, I did come to Pinnacle. I live right down the street. I was going to say I could walk, but it's way too cold. Yeah, so let me know, you guys. You all have my contact information. It's right there. You can still see it on the screen, I think. Feel free to text me. And yes, we will get the recording out. Debbie has it, and then you can send it to me so we both have it.
Perfect. Yeah, I will get the, I'll send the link to the recording. If anyone wants the PDF, feel free to shoot me an email, or Stephanie, either one of us can get that to you. And I definitely want to schedule another one because I just think you're just phenomenal, and this information needs to be shared with like 1 million people, not just our 100 something we had here tonight. So
yeah, I will say this, you guys, we thought there'd be even more. And I understand that people get busy and prioritize things, but for those still here, I'm applauding you for prioritizing this. And this is usually what it takes, right? They watch, they learn, they listen, they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And it's a new priority. So yes, tell other people and we'll make sure we pass this along. I can send Dropbox links of the PowerPoint to people.
oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, you get a link. So you can even text me and I can send that. Text or email the link. I can just do it from my phone, can send you that. And then Debbie, do you know, can you still send me the chat even with the recording, or?
I don't know. We will find out.
Yeah,
Our
I think you
webinar,
can.
yeah, our webinar has certain because of HIPAA. But hopefully.
Look at all the names, and I'm just trying to read them all. So if not, I was hoping you could send them because someone did it before. I just don't know how to do it.
I'll have to see. I thought I made it so that I could this time. But we shall see. Hopefully.
I just think it's cool that there's a lot of names on here that I haven't seen in years. It makes me feel like good but old. I've been doing this for a long time.
Well, I'm glad you have. You definitely have the information.
National Charity League. Yeah, I do I've done a lot of National Charity Leagues, and the boys team charity. Someone commented, I just did a couple of those. Someone just booked me today for September. I'm like, September. Any other comments or questions from anybody? I don't want to cut anyone off.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. You are amazing. We will definitely, I think it would be great to do this again in like a few months, or maybe once school is close to getting out. I'd love to do it before the end of the school year, because that way, hopefully, you know, we can get a lot of parents on there where their kids are home, and just be able to pay more attention to what's going on. So,
and we can do small focused ones if anyone wants to like request that. We could do like, hey, 30 minutes on vaping, 30 minutes, you know what I mean? If it's too much. I wasn't sure. I know I talked fast.
oh no, I think it's awesome. I think it's good because it does cover pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end it then, and I will get that recording sent out to you, Stephanie, right away, and then I'll get that posted here in the next day or two.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Say hi to the babies.
Yeah, they're passed out. I should let them sleep.
Yeah,
Thank
so is
you.
mine. All right. Have a good one. Good night,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you for attending.